The Arctic has lost control, and what's about to unfold across North America and parts of Europe is nothing short of a winter apocalypse. Right now, as we speak, the polar vortex is collapsing. This isn't your typical cold snap. This isn't just another winter storm rolling through. What we're witnessing is a catastrophic breakdown of one of Earth's most powerful atmospheric systems, and the consequences are going to be felt by more than 100 million people over the coming weeks. Let me explain what's happening up there, because this is absolutely wild. High above the Arctic, in a region of the atmosphere called the stratosphere, there's normally a tight circulation of extremely cold air spinning around the North Pole like a massive frozen whirlpool. Scientists call this the polar vortex, and when it's strong and stable, it acts like a containment system, keeping the Arctic's most brutal cold locked up near the pole where it belongs. But something has gone catastrophically wrong with that system, and the consequences are about to cascade down through our atmosphere like dominoes falling. A massive stratospheric warming event is underway. Temperatures in the stratosphere, which normally sit at around minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit, have suddenly spiked upward by as much as 90 degrees in just a matter of days. That might not sound like a big deal when we're talking about temperatures that are still well below freezing, but in the stratosphere, this is absolutely explosive. It's like someone cranked up a heater in the frozen attic of our atmosphere, and the polar vortex, which depends on that extreme cold to maintain its structure, is coming apart at the seams. What happens when the polar vortex weakens or collapses? All that Arctic air that was safely contained up near the North Pole suddenly has nowhere to go but south. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. The vortex isn't just weakening, it's actually splitting into two separate cores, fragmenting like a spinning top that's lost its balance. When this happens, chunks of Arctic air break away and plunge southward, bringing temperatures that have no business being anywhere near populated areas. The forecast models are absolutely terrifying. We're looking at temperatures running 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit below normal across massive sections of North America. Cities that would normally see temperatures in the 20s and 30s are going to be experiencing single digits and sub-zero readings. Wind chills are going to push well into the dangerous territory where exposed skin can freeze in just minutes. This isn't just uncomfortable cold. This is life-threatening cold. This is the kind of cold that strains infrastructure, overwhelms heating systems, and puts vulnerable populations at serious risk. The Carolinas are already bracing for what forecasters are calling major to extreme winter storm impacts. The Carolinas, let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about a region where snow is typically a novelty, where a dusting shuts down schools and causes runs on bread and milk at the grocery stores. But what's coming isn't a dusting. Early forecast models are suggesting the potential for significant snow accumulations driven by this Arctic air mass colliding with moisture from the Atlantic. The exact details are still being worked out, but the message from the National Weather Service is crystal clear. Major impacts are coming and people need to be prepared. The eastern United States is going to be locked in a deep freeze through at least mid-February, and possibly extending into early March. That's not a few days of cold weather. That's potentially 2 to 3 weeks of sustained Arctic conditions. Heating bills are going to skyrocket. Power grids are going to be stressed as everyone cranks up their thermostats simultaneously. Water pipes are going to freeze and burst. Roads are going to become ice rinks. And this is happening at a time when we're already dealing with the impacts of those solar storms affecting satellite communications and GPS systems. But North America isn't the only region in the crosshairs. Europe is also preparing for a continent-wide cold outbreak. The same atmospheric dynamics that are sending Arctic air southward over North America are also disrupting the normal flow patterns over Europe. Countries that have been experiencing relatively mild winter conditions are about to get a harsh reminder that winter isn't done with them yet. From the British Isles to Eastern Europe, temperatures are expected to plummet, bringing snow, ice, and dangerous cold to regions that may not be fully prepared for such extreme conditions. The timing of this event is particularly concerning because it's happening in early to mid-February, which is still prime winter in the Northern Hemisphere. We're not talking about a late-season cold snap in March or April when the sun angle is getting higher and temperatures naturally want to moderate. This is happening when winter still has a firm grip on the calendar, which means the cold air has maximum potential to dig in and persist. Meteorologists are drawing comparisons to some of the historic polar vortex events we've seen in recent years. Remember the polar vortex event of 2014 that brought record-breaking cold to the Midwest and eastern United States? Or the brutal February of 2021 when Texas experienced catastrophic freezing that knocked out power to millions and caused a humanitarian crisis? Those events were driven by similar dynamics, a weakening and displacement of the polar vortex, allowing Arctic air to spill southward. And the models suggest that what we're about to experience could rival or even exceed those events in terms of duration and intensity. What makes this particularly challenging is the uncertainty in exactly how long this pattern will persist. Some ensemble forecast models keep the cold locked in place well into early March. Others suggest a potential pattern change in late February that could provide some relief. But even the more optimistic scenarios still show at least 2 weeks of significantly below normal temperatures. 2 weeks might not sound like much, but when you're talking about sustained extreme cold affecting tens of millions of people, that's enough time for serious consequences to develop. Agriculture is going to take a hit. While crops aren't actively growing in most of the affected regions during winter, orchards and vineyards can suffer damage from extreme cold, especially if temperatures drop rapidly without adequate snow cover to insulate tree roots. Livestock are at risk in areas where temperatures plunge well below zero, requiring farmers and ranchers to take extraordinary measures to protect their animals. The energy sector is going to be strained as natural gas demand spikes for heating, while production can be hampered by freezing conditions at wells and processing facilities. Transportation is going to become a nightmare. Airlines are going to deal with de-icing delays and potential equipment failures in extreme cold. Road conditions are going to deteriorate rapidly with each wave of snow and ice. Rail systems can experience problems with track switches freezing. And all of this is happening while we're still dealing with the space weather impacts from that monster sunspot we talked about earlier, which could add communication challenges to the mix. The human toll is what keeps meteorologists up at night during events like this. Hypothermia and frostbite cases are going to surge. Carbon monoxide poisoning incidents typically spike during extreme cold events as people use alternative heating sources improperly or run vehicles in enclosed spaces trying to stay warm. Homeless populations are particularly vulnerable, and emergency shelters are going to be overwhelmed trying to provide refuge. Even people in their own homes can be at risk if power outages occur during the worst of the cold, which is entirely possible given the strain on electrical grids. What's particularly frustrating about polar vortex events is that they're notoriously difficult to predict with precision more than about 7 to 10 days in advance. We know it's coming, we know it's going to be significant, but pinpointing exactly which areas will see the worst conditions, exactly how long it will last, and exactly how intense it will be, those details remain somewhat uncertain until the event is nearly upon us. That's why it's so critical for people in the potentially affected areas to start preparing now before the worst of it arrives. This event is also a stark reminder of the complex relationship between climate change and extreme weather. While the overall trend is toward a warming planet, that doesn't mean winter is going away or that extreme cold events can't happen. In fact, some research suggests that Arctic warming and the resulting weakening of the polar vortex may actually increase the frequency of these extreme cold outbreaks in mid-latitude regions. It's counterintuitive, but a warming Arctic may paradoxically lead to more frequent and intense winter weather events in places like the United States and Europe. The science is still being debated and refined, but what we're seeing right now is consistent with those theories. Looking ahead to the next 2 to 3 weeks, the message is clear. Prepare for sustained, dangerous cold. Make sure your home heating system is working properly. Have backup heat sources ready, but know how to use them safely. Stock up on non-perishable food and water in case you need to shelter in place during the worst of the storms. Check on elderly neighbors and vulnerable family members. Bring pets indoors. Protect pipes from freezing. Have your car emergency kit stocked with blankets, food, water, and other survival gear. These aren't overreactions. These are sensible precautions for what could be one of the most significant winter weather events of the 2026 season. The polar vortex collapse is underway, and winter is about to show us that it still has teeth. The next few weeks are going to test our infrastructure, our preparedness, and our resilience. But if we take this threat seriously, if we prepare properly, and if we look out for one another, we can get through this. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay safe as this Arctic blast descends upon us.